Hey Nick, welcome to the show. Give it a nudge. It's a pleasure to have you on. Shame that we are separated by states at the moment, but that's, one of those things. We're getting more and more of these remote ones these days. The world is a changing place. But welcome to the show. It's good to have you on here. I think we've got a few different things to talk about today, but why don't we start with, before we sort of get onto your journey and the new business, why don't we just go in a little bit into Weploy? So for the viewers, just explain what Weploy is, how it works, what it does, and so forth.
Right. Now, thanks for having me, Steve. So I'm one of the co-founders of Weploy. We're an on-demand marketplace for customer service. We started in 2016. When we first started, it was really like on-demand talent. So Uber for jobs, pretty much, that's what everyone knew us for. But as we matured as a business, we realized that we were doing too many categories, too many industries. So now we just focus on just purely customer service on demand. We're a national business. We got a presence in New Zealand as well. So essentially the business is a labor hire business with tech as of today. Where we're moving to is really a marketplace for highly specialized customer service people.
Okay, so
onshore.
Okay, onshore. And so when you talk about customer service, obviously that's quite a broad remit. Is there a particular industry or space that you're particularly strong in? Is the one that you're pushing into? How does it sort of structured right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. As we got better with identifying like our ideal client or our ICP, we like to call it, it's any kind of business that has a focus with a call center that has 30 plus people on top. So a really good example is like an insurance company. An insurance company. And the differentiator between us and a traditional labor hire business is that we've got tech and we do all the vetting up front. We front load all the grunt work on the back end. So, you can actually jump on your phone, order or request or requisite 30 customer service people to come to your business in the very next day, or even in hours. If you want it 4 hours, that's what we kind of recommend.
Wow, 4 hours is that's super fast. So say you are an insurance company, you say, right, we're running a campaign for something, and you literally wanted to launch it. I mean, hopefully you'd have a little bit more planning than this, but if you literally want to launch it 4 hours from now, you could have 30 people ready to go, previously vetted, all there, bang, on the phones, hammering away.
Yeah. Like it's not highly recommended. We do want to give some lead time where we can get a little bit of understanding of your business. What are the needs of the customer service profile? But in general, if you just need bums on seats, you need someone to answer the phones, that's what we are for. I think the use case that you would like to use Weploy for, especially for insurance companies, is like if there's a catastrophic event in Perth where there's hail or something, and then the next day people will be calling your phone line for damages or whatever it is. That's when you use us. The difference between us and a traditional recruitment company is that if you call a recruiter, it is almost next to impossible to get 30 people into your business the next day.
Absolutely, and that's why we don't do customer service. But I've done many years ago. I did contact center recruitment, and it's the next day is totally impossible. Even within a week, it's tricky. It's very, very difficult. So tell me, it's the bulk of your work that comes through. Is it more disasters or campaigns, or is it a lot of longer term contracts as well?
Well, we try to play within the future of work. Like COVID's been a really good campaign for contingent work. Let's say. We like to play in the space where we don't consider ourselves as a recruitment company. We don't consider ourselves a pure labor hire. We're like labor hire with tech. So if you really think about it, a business that has that surge capacity or that surge need is a really good use case for us. But a lot of our clients come for the speed, stay for the quality. That's probably the best way I could probably put it.
I like that's a good tag. You should definitely use that more. I think it's great. So how do you have these people available? You know, how do you have this pool of candidates or pool of highly vetted, as you just mentioned, quality people? How have you managed to achieve that? Because that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. Like with any kind of marketplace, it's the chicken or the egg, right? Like, you know, do you find the clients first or do you find the talent first? We've been really fortunate that when we first launched, we always wanted to make sure that we weren't heavily reliant on traditional recruitment techniques or strategies. So we were always reliant on talent. So there's a say at Weploy, like talent knows talent. So it sounds simple if the way I see it is like if you jump onto our platform, you go through like a pretty strenuous vetting process. But once you're on the platform, you can start accepting jobs immediately. And once, for example, you jump on the platform, you get accepted for a job for example, like let's say a Medibank. The next day, you're probably going to tell a friend, like, hey, I jumped on this platform. I got paid above award rates. You're going to tell 2 to 5 people. And we've been able to acquire talent that way.
That's awesome. And so let's touch a little bit on you. How did you end up? What's your sort of story? How did you end up founding this business? What have you done before? And then that'll lead nicely into the new venture as well, I think.
Right. Do you want the short story or do you want the long story?
How long's the long story? What about the medium story? I like a medium story. No, enough detail to excite people.
Right. So I come from pretty, I would say like, simple background. My mother raised me and my 3 sisters. I was like any other immigrant family where, I went to school for the wrong reasons, I would say. It was either doctor, lawyer.
Yeah.
I ended up not doing any of them. I ended up doing international trade and Asian studies. Had no idea why I studied Asian studies, but it was a thing back then. One of the things that I really enjoy was food and people. So I naturally got into hospitality. I was a bartender when I was in my teens.
Yep.
I left Australia with $800 in my pocket. Left to Hong Kong. Opened a couple bars, then owned my own bar, and then opened my own agency, my boutique agency. And I traveled the world a little bit, just opening bars and training people up.
Yep.
Designing drinks. So I naturally became pretty people-centric already. So training and recruitment that's what I did for several years. I got married, came back here, and I realized that, people that can't do it, teach. So I got into training and recruitment again back in Australia, opened my own agency again. And I just realized it was a brick and mortar business. It wasn't scalable. Our agency, had at its peak, probably 35 people.
Yep.
I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's where I met my co-founder, Tony. Over training and a couple beers, we thought we always wanted to do something together, but we didn't realize what we wanted to do.
Yep.
At that time, Uber, Fedora, Deliveroo. I don't think Deliveroo was even there yet. But there was a lot of these app-based business delivery services that were starting to become pretty popular. And we had a chat. We're like, can you do this with recruitment with a phone?
Yeah.
And I was like, why not? If you think about Australia, the market is so small, but when you go to America, you can literally do everything on your phone. They call them super apps, it's called cradle to the grave, where you have your phone in your hand, you leave the house, you leave with your phone, you can order food, buy stuff, whatever it is. And why can't you just do recruitment for the phone? And that's how Weploy kind of started.
Cool.
Yeah.
People on demand.
People on demand. That was exactly because I've always been really passionate about recruitment and just people in general. And one of the things that I realized, even through my personal journey, coming back to Australia, was that it was, I was either overqualified, didn't meet the criteria, but you realize you're dealing with people, and you got literally 2 minutes to make an impression. So one of the things that myself and my co-founder Tony wanted to do was like, why don't we just remove that unconscious bias where like people get the job for their skills, for their competency, and not for their name, not for their ethnicity. You know what I mean? It's just purely competence based, purely based on competency and experience. So that when we first launched Weploy, we had only one feature, was like the job gets posted out to a pool of candidates.
Yep. You
either accept or you don't. And that's literally what it was. You couldn't see their name, you couldn't see their age, you couldn't see their sex. So if you needed a receptionist, a really good example is, for example, Steve, if you woke up and your admin person or your secretary or your receptionist called in sick, what do you do? Right? Like it was almost such a headache to even solve that.
Yeah.
So when we decided, like, why can't you just jump on your phone and just, I need a receptionist for a couple of hours or a couple of days, what it is, do it through the phone.
Yep.
And that's how the idea kind of started. And when you really look at a brick and mortar business, like how much time or capacity can one recruiter actually do? So we, when I had my agency, we were filling like probably 2,000 jobs a year.
Yep.
And when Tony and I started speaking, like, why can't we fill 2,000 jobs in a minute? Like with technology today, you can do anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where it came from.
So that was the whole concept. Yeah.
And so you touched on it earlier. You've got a new venture as well at the moment. So talk a little bit through that.
Yeah. So like COVID has been like a blessing. When COVID first hit Australia, we didn't know what to do. Like we were like, like any kind of business owner, you're like, are we going to be around? Or do we try to survive, or do we try to thrive? Through our learnings over the last 5 years, we naturally learn how to scale. So we learn how to manage our own workforce. We learn how to do payroll timesheets, get data, and get the analytics behind it. So Tony and I sat there and we're like, what can we do if tomorrow everyone shut the doors and say, you know what, COVID's here. We don't want to work with, we don't need a need for contingent workforce.
Yep.
So we repackaged the technology that we built for ourselves for Weploy, and we repackaged as a business called Neat, which is a workforce management tool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the new venture, and it really just helps businesses get into the digital world, but remove yourself from paper, or like, because the most important thing for any kind of business or business owner is actually time.
Yes.
And when we looked at what we had, was we had all this technology behind our business, and we wanted to repackage it into a tool, let's say, and the category or the industry that we actually picked, we went to market, we knocked on so many doors, and the one market that we hit was commercial cleaning.
Yep.
And when we looked at commercial cleaning, it was very similar to how, or any kind of business, like a lot of commercial businesses, they're either small or really large, like super large, national wide. But you look at their background, it's they come from immigrant families where they came in, couldn't get a job, so what do? They go get a mop, a bucket, start knocking doors. Hey, can I provide a service for you?
Yep.
And they naturally scale, but with these things, they're not technology savvy. So they have heaps of paperwork to do. Like timesheets are still on paper, reports are still on paper, auditing is still on paper. Checklists are still on paper. A good example of this for you to see, Steve, if you go to any retail center or shopping center, you go to the bathrooms, you look at behind the door, there's a little checklist on when the cleaner came there.
I remember signing those myself when I worked in hospitality like you when I was growing up. You check the toilets, make sure they're not destroyed, sign it off. Yeah, they're still there. They are all still there. All the Westfields there.
They are still there. And so we're like, why hasn't this been digitized? We're in the new world. So we looked at it. We can actually not only help businesses grow, give them back time, where business owners and organizations can really focus on what matters, which is looking after their people and growing their business rather than doing manual tasks. If you call any kind of small business or that is frontline service, most of the time you're either gonna get like a really quick answer that say, I'll call you back in 5 minutes, or they won't pick up at all. And because they're always in transit or doing paperwork or doing just offline tasks.
Yeah, and how are you spelling that? Neat.
NEAT.
Okay, so the traditional way. No one spells names traditionally anymore. That's good. It's good, refreshing to see someone actually spelling something correctly.
Well, it's a double entendre, right? We wanted to make sure everything was simple. Business should be simple, and so we just wanted to make everything neat for everyone.
I like it. And so how long's Neat been going? So you pretty much launched that last year during the pandemic, or?
We started the pandemic. We got a lot of first adopters, and we're doing our launch in January next year.
Okay, cool. Oh, that's exciting. And so if you look at that business, obviously that's going to create another whole revenue stream. What about Weploy? Weploy is obviously continued and has actually ended up being a great business during, like you mentioned, because of COVID. And you're focused on that customer service. Do you have plans to expand that out into potentially other areas of employment? Or, I know it's obviously it's very surge-driven, what you're talking about, whereas most jobs are not. So what's the future of Weploy?
Yeah, so we like to play within the future of work. It depends on how big is the bank, I guess. As a startup business, your strength is really in your nimbleness. So, as I said at the start of the conversation, when we first started, we did general admin, legal admin, HR admin. We did so many things, too many categories, too many industries, and we couldn't get to that critical mass. But when we focused on one industry, one category, we got the hockey stick. So going back to that, the thing with any kind of business or any kind of entrepreneur, I would say, is entrepreneurship is already hard in general. But you have to be a little bit out there on the spectrum to actually go into business in the first. There's so many risks. It's not stable. So when we really thought about it, it is so hard for any kind of business person or entrepreneur to actually just do one thing because they believe in themselves. So they want to do everything. You believe you can take on the world. So with Weploy, our focus over the next 2 to 5 years is really just crushing the market with customer service and then growing laterally onto another vertical. Maybe commercial cleaning would be a great category for us.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Exciting. Fantastic. Well, I guess you're probably going to be going and doing some growth. There's a lot of people that watch our show that are looking for interesting startups to come and work for. We're known for just recruiting in startups and scale-up spaces. So a lot of our audience watches this show to look for companies that they might want to work for. So, here's your opportunity to talk to them directly from your heart. Tell me, if someone was interested in working for Neat or Weploy down the track, if you had roles available, why would they come and work for you?
Look, I think with joining any kind of business is one, believe in the mission and believe in the vision first. If you don't believe in the vision and you don't believe in the mission, it's just another job. Doing a startup is actually pretty difficult in general. You're doing long hours. I do it for. I think the reason why I do it is I've been a really bad employee in the past, where I just like to
That's the
work for
same for me.
myself.
I am the same. I don't think anyone would want to employ me. I'm not very good at the politics. I'm just not a good person.
So to answer your question, I think the world of the startups it's the future. You know, like without innovation, you're not going to see progress, right? So you know, it's the whole thing about seed capital, seed investments, where the seed becomes a plant, it becomes a company. Apple was once, you know, in someone's garage. So if you want to join a startup or you want to join Weploy, really believe in the mission, believe in it, and like really want to make a difference in this world, I think that's probably the best way to get into it, because there's other means of employment that is so much more stable than the startup world.
I would agree with that. What do you think in all this time of doing this, what do you think you've learned the most? What do you think's been the biggest lesson for you in being a founder? You've touched on a few things that I could pick up on, but I'm interested to know what you think it is.
I think being a founder in general is a journey on its own. Like, you know, like ideas don't build companies. I think ideas is a great start, but I think like through my personal journey, I think really it's who's around you, who's the people around you, the people that, like, I don't run the business. Like, you know, I'm literally just an employee. I'm a part of the business. Yes, I'm a founder, but like I'm an employee first and foremost, and it's the people that really grow your business. So really trust your people, believe in your people, and it is something really hard to do. Like, you know, like you start a business and you really think like you've got all the answers, but you really don't. You really don't. When you really think about it, like you hire smart people for them to be smart, right? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges of any kind of business, where like, you know, like you have to like just remember that yes, you had the idea, but the people around you really grow the business.
Yeah. You have the idea, get better people to execute, right?
100%. Like, you know, I'm the worst executor, but I believe in the team. And like, look, it's to be honest, it's a learning curve for anyone, right? Like you want to excel at everything, but just remember, running a business is a team sport. You know, even like Michael Jordan can't do it like without his teammates, right? So you have to get really comfortable with trust, honesty, transparency, and that's how, you know, that's the difference between the big companies and, you know, the Teslas, your Apples. They have people that grow the business.
Yeah,
that's what I've learned, you know, and that's probably something that I would like to share with the world. You know what I mean?
Well, you just did. Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's I love the way that you're like a lot of companies, right? You've sort of hit this pandemic period when it came in and you were like, we need to do something. We can't just sit here and wait and find out. So you've gone and done something, but at the same time, you've ended up benefiting from the pandemic in certain aspects, as a lot of companies have, particularly in the startup scale-up space. And now you've got a much better business with a much stronger future because you're going to have two separate revenue lines. And I think what I love about that is that so many entrepreneurs go and do something before they have to. You know, I think a lot of companies can be guilty of, well, let's just see what happens. And, you know, if it all goes wrong, then we'll come up with something. The smarter ones go, who knows what's going to happen? Well, let's just do something anyway, just in case. And if it all comes off, then where's the harm? And I've seen so many people come on this show who reacted to this uncertainty with some sort of change or some sort of, I'm not going to use the P word because it's so overused. And then both of those businesses have ended up kicking off. And I think that's just a testament to people going at things with a very positive attitude and taking things and tackling them head on. And I think that's what I love about recruiting and working with entrepreneurs is just their willingness to just go out and solve the problem before it's a problem.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, but you're absolutely right. Like, I think the difference between other companies and companies that really excel or thrive is their willingness to take a punt.
Yeah.
And that's super important with anything you do. Like, it's that thing, like, you know, paralysis by over-analysis. Like, just do
Yeah.
it. And if you fail, you learn.
Actually, I've got a question for you. One more question for you, because you've just hit me with something so I've had 3 or 4 businesses now, and the one that we're in at the moment, we've started up lots of little offshoots. Now, to me, it's always been important to create ones that feed each other so that they all sort of can become self-sustaining. Every time I do one of those things, and I'm just about to do one later this afternoon, which is why I'm asking you this now, I just have massive anxiety about it until I've done it, and then it's too late, and then it always tends to work out because you kind of have to make it work out. Do you get that same? I ask a lot of people this question. Do you get that same pangs of anxiety just when you're on the precipice of doing something that you know in your heart is probably the right thing, but you never know? Do you still get those?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think with any kind of decision or critical decisions in business, like you have to be confident in your own skin and be really decisive, but like you also have to make a rational choice or a decision that has been well, I guess, analyzed, or like to a point that you mitigate enough risk that you can de-risk. With anything, there's always going to be a risk.
Yep.
But like that's the difference between taking a risk and not doing anything at all. So I think like with any kind of business, we say that quite a fair bit. I say that quite a fair bit. It's like a duck on water. Like, it looks pretty calm. It's moving along. It's going from A to B, but on the bottom, your feet is just trotting along. So there's so many moving parts. And anxiety and stress is always going to be there, and that's because you care. And if you didn't care, you wouldn't be stressed.
That's true.
And I think like all the high performers that I've met and all the people that excel in whatever they do, there's always going to be a level of anxiety. There's always going to be a level of stress. And it's because they really care about what they do. And it's not about the failure. It's about how they see themselves and the optics that they put in the world, and how who they are. Like, I think failure is without failure, there won't be progress.
Yeah, I think you've articulated that well, and I think that the founders listening to this will appreciate that too. Mate, thank you so much. I will let you get on with your day. I know everyone's flat out. Thank you for coming on the show, and I'm sure we will speak again in the new year.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, mate.
Nice to meet you, man.